Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Living Manna. Hi, guys. I'm Dave Sane, Senior Shepherd here at LMC. It's Wednesday night, which, of course, you know what that means. It's time for Bible studying. Hope you guys are having an awesome week this week. I do have to ask you, please keep in prayer my mother in law and my father in law, Jim and Ida. They were in a car accident today, and they got pretty banged up, and Sister Ida is in the hospital. So if you can lift her up in prayer, we would certainly appreciate that. Our hearts go out to you, to the both of them. Keep them in your mind and in your thoughts. We would certainly appreciate that. But here we are. It's Wednesday night. It's time for some Bible study. Let's open up with a word of prayer and we'll jump right into this. Abba, we love you. Give us eyes to see, ears to hear, and hearts that are willing to obey. In the Master's name, amen. Amen. Okay. All right, guys. Well, listen, if this is the first time or if you have not yet subscribed, please do so. You can hit that subscribe button. You can hit the bell to be notified. Give us a like, give us a thumbs up, share this out with somebody. Once you enjoy the study, let somebody else know about it as well. Give me a shout out in the comment section if you're watching. Like to know who's out there. If you guys have a question, if I see it, I'll do my best to try to answer it. But we got a lot to go over today. We weren't here last week, so we got some time to make up here. Shavuot is this upcoming weekend for us, Sunday. Remember, there's no Saturday service, just Sunday morning at 10:30 as we celebrate our memorial of Shavuot or Pentecost, the 50th day of the counting of the Omer. We certainly invite everybody to come out for that. And today's message is connected. It's all interconnected. The title and the topic for today, let me pop this up so you guys can see it. It's called The Sheep and the Goats. The sheep and the goats. Neat picture there. Hopefully you guys can see that. Let me make this a little bit bigger for your screens out there. There we go. The sheep and the goats. Very familiar parable. It's at the end. It's in Matthew chapter 25. We'll get to it in just a second. But we're going to look at it a little bit differently than I think most of the time. We may have heard this before, if we've ever heard a teaching on this, if we've ever gone through sort of the church world around us. Most of the time when this gets interpreted, it's interpreted as the judgment, as we're standing there before the Messiah and he's dividing people from the right and the left. He's going over all of the different things that that individuals did, and they'll be ushered into the kingdom. And those that don't, of course, they'll be ushered out of the kingdom into the place prepared for the enemy. Um, and I certainly when you read that parable, those are things that we should be doing to people, being good to them, being kind to them, feeding, clothing, visiting, all that kind of stuff is certainly something that we should be doing. But there is a much bigger meaning to this that we lose because we don't understand the overarching story of the gospel. It's not until you understand the overarching story that this parable actually makes sense, because we're going to find this in other places in the Bible. But anyway, take a look at that picture. Really neat. You see the goats are on the left and the sheep there are on the right. And of course, Messiah is there dividing them. Let's jump into this for tonight. All right. First of all, we've been going over this for a while. We've been talking about Shavuot, and they're the house of Israel. They're still the house of Israel. They're still the tribes of Israel, plus all the strangers and foreigners that are with them. They're on their way to the mountain. They're before the mountain. Moses is going to go up and he's going to receive the covenant. People are going to accept the covenant. They're going to get washed. They're going to hear Elohim's voice. The instructions are going to come down to them. The commandments are going to come down to them. And they are going to become the nation of Israel. This is when they become the nation. That day that they say, we will, when Moses comes down and says, this is the covenant, this is what Elohim said, and everybody says, I will. He wants to make them a chosen nation, a nation above all other peoples, a set apart people. Here's where they become a nation. They were tribes before, they were groups before, they were families before. They were the family of Jacob, they were the family of Israel, because Jacob and Israel obviously are the same person. But from this point forward, they are the nation of Israel. They are the first fruits. the first nation of all nations to be picked to begin to understand who the Elohim of creation is. And the Elohim of creation, Yahuwah, uh, decides decides this nation is the nation that he will attach his name to. He picked them, he tells us, because he loved them, because he loved Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob that he would pick their descendants to bless all the nations. And just so you can see that this title, Elohim of Israel, because that's what I want you to sort of catch on to right here. He is, and we can probably go through like a half an hour of verses that say either the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, or the Elohim of Israel. Here's just a couple, because this is important. We have to understand, if we're going to understand the overarching story, that we serve the Elohim, the God of Israel. That's who we serve. And we are saved by the King of Israel through his sacrifice. That is the Messiah. The Father, Yahuwah, is the God of Israel, and Messiah is the King of Israel and the High Priest of Israel. But it's of Israel, the nation Israel. Remember, we talked about, I think, this past week, that especially in this day and even today, that gods are attached to a nation. That's how you know them. So here's just a couple of verses for you guys. Isaiah chapter 37, verse 16. It says, O Yah of hosts, Elohim of Israel, God of Israel, the one who dwells between the cherubim, you are Elohim, you alone. Of all kings of the earth, you have made the heavens and the earth. Here's 1 Chronicles chapter 28, verse 4. It says, Yet Yahuwah, Elohim of Israel, chose me above all the house of my father to be king over Israel forever. Talking about King David, to be king over Israel forever. But look what he calls him. The God, or the Elohim, Yah, the Elohim of Israel. That's his name. That's the nation he is attached to. Here's 1 Samuel chapter 10 and verse 17. It says, And Samuel called the people together to Yahweh at Mitzpah and said to the children of Israel, Thus says Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, I have brought Israel up out of Egypt. One more, Joshua chapter 24, verse 2. It says, And Yehoshua, Joshua, said to all the people, Thus says Yahweh, Elohim of Israel. And just to give you one that says Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Remember, Jacob is Israel, so it's basically the same sentence. Here is Exodus chapter 3, verse 16, speaking to Moses, Go and you shall gather the elders of Israel together and say to them, Yah, Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Yitzhak, and the Elohim of Yaakov, appeared to me, saying, I have indeed visited you and seen what is done to you in Egypt. All of these, just to sort of make the point, give you some verses that you guys can look at, you guys can see that over and over and over and over and over again, Yah himself identifies himself as the God of Israel. His people identify him as the God, the Elohim of Israel. This is important because that's who we worship. That's who we serve. We serve the God of Israel. Of course, he is the God of all creation as well, but the nation that is attached to him is the nation of Israel. And so the Bible is a story that is Israel or nation centric. Now, I know we get a lot of pushback in the modern religious world today saying, yeah, but that's done, that's finished, now it's about something else. No, it's not. It's the same story all the way through. Elohim has not missed a beat. He has not missed a step. Exactly what he intended to do, he is doing. His word goes out and it establishes everything that he wants for it to do, and it never comes back to him void. He has not missed a step. He has not changed anything. His plan is working perfectly the way that he wanted it. So he is the God or the Elohim of Israel. I know that you guys know that, but sometimes, we got people watching that may not realize that. We may, think of him in some other way. He's the God of the church. He's the God of the Christians. He's the God of America. And he is the God of Israel. That is how he expresses himself. That's the people that he called to come to Mount Sinai. They are the first fruits of all of the nations to come. All right. So Shavuot. We talked about this already. Shavuot is the fulfillment or the beginning of the fulfillment of the oath or the covenant that was given to Abraham. This is like I said, Elohim's word goes out and he accomplishes what he says. So he tells Abraham, I'm going to do something, and exactly what he says to Abraham gets done. Here it is, Shavuot, getting out of Egypt. This is what he spoke to Abraham about. Here it is in Genesis chapter 12, verse 1. It says, and Yahweh said to Abram, get yourself out of your land, from your relatives, and from your father's house, to a land that I will show you. So he's leaving Babylon and he's going to Canaan. He says, and here it is. Look at this, guys. I want you to see this. Here, this is the commandments as far as right now, the instruction that's given to Abraham. Leave your home. Go to a land that I'm going to show you. And what is Elohim going to do? I shall make you a great nation. This is the promise. A great nation, not a whole bunch of nations, even though he's going to be the father of many nations. He's talking about a nation. And I'll bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. And I shall bless those who bless you and curse him who curses you. And in you, all the clans or all the peoples or all the nations or all the tribes of the earth shall be blessed. So it's going to go from Abraham to a nation, and it's going to be extended out to all of the peoples. That is just the process. This is the oath. This is what Abraham is told. This is the promise given to Abraham. Abraham obeys, and of course this comes. Here's Genesis chapter 15, verse 13. And he said to Abram, know for certain that your seed are to be sojourners in a land that is not theirs. Now, he's not talking about a singular seed here. He's talking about a group of people. He's talking about this people that he will make a great nation. They're going to be sojourners. They're going to be wanderers, foreigners in another nation. Obviously, he's speaking about Canaan, but he's also speaking about Egypt. They're going to be sojourners in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. This is from the time in Canaan all the way to the time in Egypt until they leave. We went over all the dates a couple of weeks ago. Verse 18, it says, on the same day, Yahweh made a covenant with Abram, saying, I have given this land to your seed. To what seed? To the seed who are to be sojourners, and to the seed that he will make into a great nation, and through which all the clans of the earth shall be blessed. All of this is important. This just helps us keep this organized in our thinking as to the overall story. All right. So a covenant is made with Abraham. A promise, an oath is made with Abraham. His seed are going to become a nation. His seed are going to inherit the land. That is the land that today we call Israel, from the Jordan River, from the Nile River all the way to the Euphrates River. If you keep reading, oh, there it is, from the river of Egypt to the great river Euphrates. That is the Nile River all the way to the Euphrates River. It's a big piece of property. Genesis chapter 22, verse 15. It says, and the messenger of Yah called to Abraham a second time from the heavens and said, by myself I have sworn, declares Yah, because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, that I shall certainly bless you. And I shall certainly increase your seed as the stars of the heavens and the sand which is in the seashore. So the seed, he's talking about lots and lots of people that he's referring to here, is the seed that's going to get the land, the seed that are the sojourners, the seeds that are going to bless all the clans of the earth, and the seed that he is going to make a nation out of. All right? And that which is on the seashore, and let your seed possess the gate of their enemies. And in your seed, all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. So here is the fulfillment of this promise. The promise is given to Abraham, and now it is confirmed again that it is in his seed. But Saul makes a big deal about this last verse here, saying he's not actually just referring to those that have been given the land. He's not just referring to the sojourners that are going to be there for 400 and something years. He's not referring just to the nation, But Saul makes a big deal out of this, rightfully so. In Galatians chapter 3 and verse 16, he says, "But the promises were spoken to Abraham and to his seed." He does not say, "and to seeds as of many, but as of one, and to your seed, who is Messiah." Don't forget, this happens when Abraham offers up his son. So Saul is sort of splitting hairs here, saying that this last verse here, this promise that is being given because he obeyed his Elohim's voice, that the nations are going to be blessed. They're going to be blessed through a seed. But Saul goes out of the way to tell us, yeah, but it's not the nation he's talking about. It's an individual he's talking about, Messiah. So there's two seed. There's the seed singular, Messiah, and there's the nation, the seed, who are sojourners, who are to be given the land, who are to become a great nation. Of course, we are talking about Israel, the tribes of Israel. He is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So Messiah, when Messiah does come, the seed to come, he is going to be the king of Israel. And we can look at a whole bunch of different verses for this, but here's just John 19:4. This is actually Pilate speaking about the Messiah. It says, "And it was preparation day of the Pesach week at about the 6th hour. And he said to the Yehudim, 'See your king.'" Right? So he puts them out there, says, "See your king." And of course, they don't want to hear any of that. They don't want to proclaim him as king. But here it is. He's being proclaimed king. And this isn't the only place. There's many other places. Here's Matthew chapter 21 and verse 5. This is Messiah riding just before he rides into Jerusalem on the donkey. So he tells his disciples, "Go to the place and you'll find a donkey and a colt." Actually, two. There's the donkey and there's the colt. He says, "And all this took place that it might be filled what was spoken by the prophet." He's talking about the prophet Zechariah, saying, "To the daughter of Zion." The daughter of Zion are the people of Zion, the people of Jerusalem. We would call them Israel, or in this particular case, Jews, the nation of Israel of its day. He says, "So say to the daughter of Zion, see your king is coming to you, meek and sitting on a donkey, even a colt, the foal of a donkey." So here it is, this particular prophecy out of Zechariah, Messiah purposefully fulfills, tells him to go and find these two donkeys to fulfill this, because Messiah is the king of Israel, where Father is the God of Israel. Messiah is the king, the savior. He is the high priest of Israel. And Abba Yah is the Elohim. He is the God. He is Yahweh, God of Israel. These are the titles that we should keep clear in our minds. But it's about the nation of Israel. So the oath that was given to Abraham, twofold: a land and a nation and a people who will be sojourners. Check, got that. And a seed who's going to bless all the nations, Messiah. Check, got that. Who is Messiah? He is the King of Israel. All right, I know, lots of review for you guys. Trying to zip through this quick so we can get to some really interesting stuff. Okay. Exodus chapter 19. This is the actual giving of the covenant. Exodus chapter 19 and verse 5. These are the words that Elohim speaks, that Father speaks to Moses. He says, "And now if you," meaning the whole house of Israel, "will obey my voice and shall guard my covenant," so he's making covenant with them, "then you shall be my treasured possession above all peoples, for all the earth is mine. And you shall be to me a kingdom of priests," and here it is, "a set apart nation." So here's where they become a nation. "These are the words which you are to speak to the children of Israel." Of course, he does. He goes back down the mountain. He gives them these exact words, and they all agree. Yes, absolutely, we will do it. That in this day, they made covenant with Elohim. The promise, the oath that started with Abraham is now moving along through history. And the next part of it is coming, that now he's going to make a great nation that's going to inherit a land, because that's what was told to us. And at some point down the line, A seed is going to come that is going to be the king, that is going to come be lowly and riding in on a donkey, the king of Israel. So this is important. So here's the covenant. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, that the nature of a covenant is not the same. A covenant between Elohim and the nation of Israel is not the same as like a contract between two parties, to me and you, two individuals here on earth. Because here on earth we can get out of a contract, right? There's you break the contract, it's done. You can get out of it, probably get sued for breaking it, but you can get out of it if you really want to. That's not how this works. This covenant is an oath. This is something that Father swore to Abraham is going to happen. He swore there is going to become a nation from him. He swore that through that nation, a seed is going to come. He swore that there is going to be blessings to all of the nations. He swore that that seed would become the king of Israel. So whatever goes on from the time of the making of this covenant to the time that all of these come true, good or bad, Elohim's not going to break the covenant. Now they may break the covenant, and here's the thing we need to do, because we say break the covenant, and what winds up happening and sort of in our Christian educated minds, we think break the covenant means that when you break the covenant, that's it, it's over, it's done. You've left it. That's not what break the covenant actually means. Sort of think of it like this: if you're driving 75 miles an hour in a 55-mile-an-hour speed zone, you have broken the law. Well, just because you've broken the law, that doesn't mean that the law still isn't active. It just means that you are now going to get a penalty for breaking the law. Those penalties in the scripture we read as curses in Deuteronomy. The curses. That one of the curses is death, but there's lots of other curses as well. They are penalties for breaking the covenant. Now, an individual, through just total rebellion and rejection, can remove themselves from the covenant, which is a bad thing to do. But the promise to Abraham and to the seed, the nation, remains. And he will always produce and keep a people that will have that promise and move the story along to the next stage until everything that Elohim has said comes true. Nothing will return to him void. So I think it might be a little bit better if, I know in both of our Bibles it says curses, but I think to understand this better, think of it as penalties. These are penalties. And just because you've broken it, the penalty doesn't always mean that it doesn't. In fact, it never means that the promise is done to the nation. You may be in a whole lot of trouble. You may be up to your neck in all sorts of agita, but the promise to the nation remains true. So it's not removal. Here's chapter 28 of Deuteronomy, verse 64. Here is one of the curses, or one of the penalties for breaking the covenant. And of course, Elohim doesn't just do this right away. I mean, you break it and you break it and you break it, and he gives grace and mercy, and he's trying to bring you back. But at some point, the penalty has to kick in. I mean, if you keep doing 75 down the 55-mile-an-hour zone, and the cop just keeps letting you go, something bad can happen down the road. He's going to stop you sooner or later, and you're going to pay the penalty. And that's what happens here. So here's the penalty to the house of Israel, who just in Exodus 19 became the nation of Israel with strangers and foreigners, who are now who now the God of Israel, the Elohim of Israel is their God. If they break the covenant, he says, and Yahuwah shall scatter you among all peoples, meaning all the nations, from one end of the earth to the other. And there you shall serve other mighty ones. They're going to fall away. They're going to do all sorts of crazy things, which neither you nor your fathers have known, wood and stone. Among those nations, you are to find no rest. They're not going to be happy in the nations. The nations are not going to be very good to them, nor have a resting place for the sole of your foot. You're not going to really, even though you're going to be in other nations, it's not really ever going to be your home. Why? Because he promised them a home already, a land. So they're absent from their home, their land. So no matter where they go, they may prosper financially, physically, but it's not going to be the same thing. And among the nations you are to find no rest, nor are you having a resting place for the sole of your foot. But there Yahweh shall give you a trembling heart and failing eyes and sorrow of being. Some difficult times are going to come upon the people of Israel because this is a curse, or this is a penalty for breaking the covenant. Here is Exodus chapter 22 and verse 15, Ezekiel chapter 22 and verse 15, just saying the same exact thing. He says, and I shall scatter you among the nations, and shall disperse you throughout the lands, and shall consume your filthiness out of you. It's a penalty. And of course, the purpose of the penalty is to eventually restore them back to the covenant, back to right standing. So Israel, obviously, the northern house offends, breaks for a long, 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 long time the covenant. And Elohim does exactly what he says. Elohim does and does exactly what he means. And so what happens to the northern house? They get scattered. Judah also gets scattered for a short time in Babylon, but they're allowed to come back. Believe it or not everybody came back from Babylon. I know we sort of think, oh, they all, a couple of million people went to Babylon, and in 70 years later, 1.5 million, 2 million people came back because it's been 70 years. Believe it or not, less than 10%. Some people say even up to 5% of the people that actually went to Babylon actually came back. You know why? They got comfortable in Babylon. They got comfortable. That's how they were raised. That's what they knew. And so only a small portion of them actually come back. A remnant. It's always about a remnant. So the words of Messiah confirm these words of Moses, that there is a penalty to the covenant. If you continue doing what you're doing, you're going to be scattered. Well, they did. Even after coming back from Babylon, they continue to fail Elohim. Messiah comes, the one who is the seed that was promised to the nation, that was given the land, that was from Abraham, that was sojourners in Egypt, that was the oath given to Abraham. The king finally comes, and of course, they don't recognize him. So there is a penalty, again, a curse, according to the covenant. This is the Mosaic covenant in action. Beloved, the fact that Israel has been wandering for like 1900 years lets us know that the covenant of Moses is still working, because they're still in exile. The things it says are still happening. It didn't just go by the way because they broke it. It wasn't just removed because Messiah came. It's still working. It's still doing exactly what Elohim told Moses to say that it should do. So here's Messiah confirming this. He says, and when you see, Luke chapter 21, so this is connected to what we did weeks and weeks and weeks ago about Luke 21 and Matthew 24, whether it's a historical thing, it's a future thing. We'll talk more about that in a second. So he says, and when you see Jerusalem, the Messiah, surrounded by armies, then know that its laying waste is near, because these are the days of vengeance to fill all that has been written. And so these are the days of vengeance to fulfill all that has been written. Written where? In Moses, in Ezekiel, in Jeremiah. It's written all over the place that if you keep doing this, you're going to be scattered, that he's going to have the city destroyed, that he's going to scatter you amongst the nations. And so here it's finally happening in a big way to Judah. It's already happened to the northern house, but now in a big way to Judah. The master goes on to say, and woe to those who are pregnant, right here for you guys, and woe to those who are pregnant and those who are nursing children in those days, for there shall be great distress in the earth and wrath upon this people. So these, just like we just read in Moses, he says, you're not going to have any peace where you go. You're not going to have any peace. You're going to be burdened. The people there are just going to give you a hard time. This penalty is not a good thing. It's not an easy thing. It's a really, really bad thing. Messiah is saying the same thing, except he's saying there's going to be great distress in the earth and wrath is going to come upon this people. And they, meaning this people, that is Judah, the Jews in this particular case, Israel's already scattered, the Jews, They shall fall by the edge of the sword. Lots of war, lots of death are going to come their way, from Rome coming in and destroying them to being led away captives among the nations. And here it is. They are going to be led away captive into all nations. Where did we just finish reading that? Moses said that. Ezekiel said that, and Jeremiah says it, and Zechariah says it. And it goes on and on and on. This promise of the penalty of the covenant is given again and again and again and again. So this is just the covenant working, but the promise or the penalty is they're going to be led away captive into all the nations. And of course, Jerusalem shall be trampled underfoot by the nations until the times of the nations are fulfilled. Now, we've talked about this with Matthew 24. We've compared this to Luke 21. I sincerely 100% believe that the words the master is saying in Matthew 24 and here Luke 21 are historical. It's a prophecy because it didn't happen yet, so he's prophesying about it. He's telling them a future thing that's coming, so it's prophecy. But remember how prophecy works. We talked about this a few weeks ago, that there's always some sort of an immediate fulfillment, a local fulfillment of that prophecy. But as in all other prophecy, there is then a larger, at some point in the future, a larger and bigger fulfillment of it. And perhaps there can be up to 2 or 3 fulfillments for the grand scheme, the grand story fulfillment to actually come. This is how Elohim speaks. So here's Messiah speaking about what's going to go on with them. When you see Jerusalem, this is going to happen. These people, pray that you're not pregnant when this happens. When Jerusalem's going to be surrounded by it. All of this stuff happens to them, but it's going to, if this is prophecy, it's going to happen again on a much bigger scale. And this is where everybody sort of gets mixed up with the idea of preterism. Is it history or is it just prophecy? And people argue back and forth, back and forth. It's both. It's both. It's history and it's prophecy. So we got to understand it in its historical context and all the fulfillments in its historical context, but then we got to look at it in its prophetic context, especially in light of everything that's said by the prophets way before Messiah comes. Because here's Messiah quoting the prophet Moses, which was said way before Messiah came. That's how prophecy works. All right. So again, Luke 21, Matthew 24 are literal. They are historical prophecies fulfilled in 70 AD, then ultimately in 135 AD in the Bar Kokhba revolt, the final destruction. Then the people of Israel, Judah, are scattered all over the world. And from every nation, they spread everywhere, from Europe from going up to Asia, to going to India, to going to Africa, to going to Europe. They go everywhere. The northern house has already been scattered all over Assyria, all over the Middle Eastern nations. So Matthew and the rest of Luke 21, when you begin to read it, you realize he's now talking about something future as well. So he's talking about historical, but then he goes on to even talk about future. Matthew chapter 22 sort of gives us this outline of both the historical and the future. This is the story of the wedding feast, the father that wants a wedding feast for his son, the people invited, come up with all excuses, finally kill the people who came with the invitations, and the master is the king is really ticked off. So verse 7, we'll pick it up. It says, but when the king heard that his servants were killed, the king was wroth. He was very angry. And he sent out his soldiers and he destroyed those murderers and he set their city on fire. So this is he's giving us a history lesson. Well, it's a prophecy lesson, but it's also a history lesson for us. He's talking about the fall of Jerusalem. Jerusalem didn't understand the coming of the Mashiach. They didn't realize who he was. They rejected him. There is a penalty for that. The penalty is that their city is going to be destroyed. The kingdom's going to be taken away from them, meaning the Pharisees, taken away from the Pharisees. It's taken away from the Sadducees. It's taken away from the priests. It's taken away from the leaders, from the Sanhedrin. It's not taken away from the people, especially the faithful people. There are faithful Jews inside of Jerusalem. It's taken from them and given to the faithful Jew, and we'll find out the faithful Gentile, who together are going to make up a brand new northern house, or Gentile a Jewish/Gentile people of Elohim, still part of the citizens of the nation of Israel. It says, but when the sovereign heard this, he was angry, and he sent out his soldiers, he destroyed those murderers, and he set their city on fire. Then he said to his servants, the wedding feast indeed is ready, but those who were invited were not worthy, meaning the Pharisees, Sadducees, etc., etc. Therefore, go into the street corners, and as many as you find, invite to the wedding feast. This is the invitation of the gospel. The gospel goes out to the Gentiles. It says, and those who were in the streets, they gathered all whom they found, both wicked, the Gentile, and the good, the Jew. So the story tells us Jerusalem falls. The gospel then goes out to all the world to invite everybody in. So it is the failure of Israel, really, that opens up the door for this message to begin now given to everybody out there. It's the rejection of Messiah's brothers, just like the story of Joseph. Joseph's brothers reject him, send him to Egypt, but it's because of their rejection that the Gentiles in the whole world get saved. And then ultimately at the end, his brothers get saved and they realize who he is. That's the same story that's going on here. So because of the rejection of their brothers, of Messiah's brothers, that is the house of Judah, the leadership of the house of Judah, it is now going to go to the good and the bad, and it's going to save the world. But the idea here is that we're all being invited to the same wedding feast. The invitation hasn't changed. It's the same wedding feast, same information. Everything's the same, but now we're being invited in. So, and those who servants went out into the street corners and gathered all whom they found. The gospel goes out. And the wedding hall was filled with guests. So at some point, this message is telling us there is the ingathering, the bringing everybody back into the actual wedding feast. And of course, the whole ending of this is, the guy doesn't have his robe on, and he's kicked out. Many are called, few are chosen. It's the chosen who come, both of the good and bad, to the wedding feast. All right, so this is the basic story of Matthew chapter 22. This becomes the story of Matthew chapter 24 when he tells us about, and Luke chapter 21, all of this stuff's going to happen. Jerusalem's going to be surrounded. The city's going to be destroyed. Horrible, horrible things are going to happen. The city's going to be set on fire. And then this gospel is going to go out all over the place. And at some point, as it goes out all over the world, at some point in the future, Elohim's going to gather all of his people back in, because that is also the promise of Moses and all of the other prophets as well. Here's chapter 24, verse 31 of the Gospel of Matthew. So you get this whole idea that the messengers go out, and he shall send his messengers with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather his chosen ones from the four winds. So here, first, now they're gathering wicked and good, and the wedding hall is filled. But Luke goes on to tell us a little bit more, that he's going to get his chosen ones from the four winds. The four winds mean the north, south, east, and west. It means every direction. It means all over the planet. It's just an idiomatic way of saying all over the planet, from one end of the heavens to the other. Again, just another idiomatic way of saying from all over the earth, all over the planet. So the message has to go out all over the planet in order for him to bring everybody from all over the planet. Don't forget that in the midst of all of this, that they were led away, Judah, into all the nations, and that Israel already was there. So now you've got the house of Judah and the house of Israel scattered amongst the nations, and now the gospel is going out to the nations as well. Elohim, think about this, Elohim is fulfilling, in this crazy way of the rejection of one group, he is fulfilling the exact words that he said to Abraham. Get out of your land. I'm going to make a nation of you. I'm going to give them this land, and I'm going to bless all the world, all the nations, all the clans, all the peoples through your seed. And here's how nobody would ever have thought it was going to happen like this, but here it is. This is the way it's happening. This is how awesome our Yah is. Our ways are not his ways. I would have done it a totally different way, made it maybe much more easier, but it doesn't matter. This is the way Elohim got it, and it's perfect because it's working out, and you and I are living it, and here we are today. All right, so with that said, Moses also said this. Sorry, guys, a little dry here. So not only did Moses say, if you break the covenant, there's a penalty, a curse for it, but he also said these following words, that the nation, the people who are scattered, at some point are going to be brought back, which is what we just read in Matthew and in the parable of the wedding feast. He sends his angels out to the good and the bad, the good and the evil, the Jew and the Gentile, everybody, so everybody can come back. But the promise to the nation is you're not going to stay in that. The penalty does not last forever. It may last a long time, but the penalty does not last forever. At some point, Elohim's anger is subsided, and he is an Elohim of mercy and love, and he wants to bring his people back. So here's Deuteronomy chapter 30 and verse 1. This is what Moses said. And it shall be when all these words come upon you, the blessing and the curse which I have set before you, and you shall bring them back to your heart among all the nations where Yah your Elohim drives you, and shall turn back to Yah your Elohim and obey his voice according to all that I command you today with all your heart and with all your being, with all your children. Then Yah your Elohim shall turn back your captivity and shall have compassion on you. And he shall turn back and gather you from all the peoples where Yah your Elohim has scattered you. Here's the promise: you're not going to stay in the punishment. You're not going to stay in the penalty, which is a wonderful thing. It's just they don't realize how long the penalty is going to last. It lasted a long time for the house of Israel, but it lasted a long time, almost 2,000 years, 1,900 years, 1,800 years for the house of Judah. So the penalty was bad, but Elohim is still going to bring them back. And Yah your Elohim shall circumcise your heart and the heart of your seed to love Yah your Elohim with all your heart and with all your being, so that you might live. And Yah your Elohim, now here's the thing. Remember, they're going to be amongst the nations, and it's not going to be easy amongst the nations. The problem is here and in other places, we're going to learn that the nations, while they were among the nations treated them badly. All the nations treated them badly, treated the Jews, the scattered Jews, horribly wherever they went, including, if not in particular, the church treated them horrifically. So Yah says, I'm going to bring you back, and Yah your Elohim shall put all these curses, these penalties of the covenant of Moses on your enemies and on those who hate you and those who persecuted you and put the sword to you and made your life horrible as you were amongst the nations. We'll read in other places that Elohim explains this more, because sometimes you read through this and you think, well, does that mean that they have to come to faith outside in the nations and turn their heart, and then Elohim's going to start to bring them back? Well, we're going to find out in other places like Ezekiel and Jeremiah and some others. No, he begins to bring them back little by little. The dead bones prophecy, they begin to come back little by little by little, stages and stages and stages. The last stage is that Elohim pours his spirit upon them. But there are multiple stages, meaning this happens over a period of time, but it happens. And that's the important part. So no, they don't have to out in the nations, realize, oh my goodness, who Messiah is, and come to faith. Though many obviously are, for him to begin to bring them back, he'll bring them back, and piece by piece, all that he has said, all the blessing, all the things he said to Abraham, all of the blessings are going to come upon them and upon the land that he promised to them. And we see those things happening right now. But here's the thing we need to look at. Elohim's now going to turn his attention to the nations, who should have, when you read Saul told the nations, the Gentiles, you ought to make them jealous. You ought to show them love and mercy the way Elohim showed you mercy. But we didn't. The nations didn't, still don't today. We didn't. We showed them anger and we showed them wrath, and our forefathers treated them horrifically in every land that they went to. They were kicked out of every land. They were pogromed. They were killed. They were raped. They were burned. They were robbed from in every land that they went to. And now Elohim saying, in the end, I'm going to bring you back, but then I'm going to put all those same curses on your enemies and on those who hurt you and persecuted you. Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 43, this is the Song of Solomon, excuse me, the Song of Moses. He's speaking about this, and he says, rejoice, O nations, with his people. This is a warning. He's telling them, you better rejoice with Elohim's people, for he will avenge the blood of his servants and will render vengeance to his adversaries and will make atonement for his land and for his people. He's going to start to bring his people back bit by bit by bit, restore them from dry bones, to skeletons, to muscle, to sinew, to skin, this physical progression until finally he pours the Spirit out on them. Finally, they will begin to understand who a Mashiach is. But he's warning the nations, you better rejoice with this, or vengeance is coming. And it's Elohim's vengeance that is coming to put all these curses on the enemies of the nations who hated you. O nations, you better rejoice, before he will avenge the blood of his servants. And Elohim is doing that and is going to do that. He's doing it right now in our own midst, and he's going to do it in the future. Here is just a couple of verses. I'm going to zip through that all say the same thing, the same warning to the nations. Isaiah 34:8, it says, for it is the day of vengeance of Yah, the year of recompense for the cause of Zion. Zion is just another way of saying Israel, the people of Jerusalem. The day of vengeance of Yah, to recompense, to pay back what all of the nations had done against Israel as she was scattered amongst the nations. That's not a good thing if you're the nations and you did the wrong thing when it came to the house of Israel. Isaiah 46:10, for this is the day of the Master Yah of hosts, a day of vengeance, to revenge himself on his adversaries. And the sword shall devour and be satisfied and made drunk with their blood. For the Master Yah of hosts has a slaughtering in the land of the north by the river Euphrates. Land of the north is always the area of the Gentiles that came down and attacked. Here it is again. He's saying the nations are going to feel his wrath for how they treated his people. Here's Jeremiah 31 in verse 10. It says, hear the word of Yah. This is a warning. Hear the word of Yah. O nations, you better listen up and declare this to the islands afar off and say, he who scattered Israel, as Moses declared, also gathers him and shall guard him as a shepherd his flock. Hosea chapter 1 and verse 10, it says, and it shall be in the place where it was said to them, you are not my people. He's talking about the northern house here. As it was said to them, you are not my people. They shall be called the sons of the living El. And the children of Judah and the children of Israel shall be gathered together and appoint for themselves one head, one king, King Messiah, and shall come up out of the earth. For great is the day of Yisrael, the scattered ones. So just verse after verse saying, not only is there the penalty, which is the scattering, the curse, but the curse doesn't last forever, and Elohim's going to bring them back. Why? Because he wants them to understand who Messiah is. He wants to fulfill the same story of Joseph. He's going to reveal Joseph to them in the end, just like his brothers were revealed to Joseph in the end. Here's the book of Joel, chapter 3 and verse 1. It says, for look, in those days and at that time, when I turn back the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, then I shall gather all nations and bring them down to the valley of Yehoshaphat. Yehoshaphat means Yah judges. He's going to bring them back to the place where Elohim will judge them. How will Elohim judge them? With the sword he shall devour and be satisfied and made drunk with their blood. It is the day of recompense for the cause of Zion. That's Yehoshaphat, Armageddon. And I shall enter into judgment with them for my people, my inheritance, Israel. Elohim's attached to a nation, his inheritance, Israel. And all the people that have joined that nation who are alive at that time, and this has to do with resurrection, all the rest of that, but another story for another day. But it says, whom they have scattered among the nations, and they have divided up my land. So Elohim scatters them, removes them out of the land, but then what do the Gentiles do? They take over the land and won't let them back in. And they continued and treated them horribly wherever they went. And now Elohim is bringing them back in, and he's going to gather all the nations to the place where Yah judges, and he's going to gather them there because you did more than I wanted done to them as they were scattered amongst the nations, and you divided up my land. You're calling my land that I gave to them your land. You don't want to be that people. When Elohim starts taking away the land and giving it back to the people to which it belongs by covenant. Everything is done. Any major change is always done in war and in death. And that's exactly what he's saying here. A sword shall devour and satisfied and be made drunk with their blood. The taking back of the land is going to be bloody. It's going to be terrible. It is already bloody and it is already terrible, but it's only just beginning. All right, so the promise, there is the penalty and the promise. So prophetic times, we are living in prophetic times. Here's prophetic times. So for a couple thousand years, almost 3,000 years, Israel's been, not 3,000, well, a long time. Israel's probably close to 3,000 years, 3,800 years. Israel's been scattered amongst the Middle Eastern, the Assyrian nations, intermixed with all of those people, all right? Some keep their identity. Judah goes away for 70 years, comes back, Messiah comes, gets scattered again, this time for good, temples destroyed, gospel is now going out to the whole world to bless the nations, just like it was promised to Abraham through the seed, the Mashiach. For almost 1,900 years, they're not in the land. There's always been some Jews in the land, but I mean, as a nation, they're not in the land. The name gets changed. It's no longer Israel, or Judah. It's called Palestinia. But there's still Jews there, some Jews. Horrible crusades go on. Muslims take over the land. Christians take over the land. The Turks take over the land. The British take over the land. Finally, after World War II, the British have the land. After World War II, after millions of Jews are slaughtered in the Nazi death camps, the sword was taken to them. Horrible, horrific things happened to them amongst the nations. It wasn't just there. It was in Russia. It was in Spain. It was in England. All throughout the world history, this has happened over and over and over and over and over and over again. And it's not to say the Jewish people are a great people either. They've done horrible, horrible things as well. We're human beings. We do horrible things to each other. But after 1948, the land now belonged to the British Empire. They made a mandate. They made a promise to the Arabs. They made a whole bunch of promises. They really messed this thing up. But they made a promise to the Arabs and to the Jews that were there, both to get the land. They gave it to the UN. The UN declares and partitions the land, gives a certain amount of land for the returning Jewish people, because these people coming out of World War II, these survivors of the Jews, they got to have a place to live. Let's bring them back to their land. Arabs didn't want that. They partitioned the land into two different spaces where these weren't even native peoples of the land. These were Arabs living in that land. And they were going to divide them. Well, they didn't want to do that. Israel said, fine, we'll do it. So I think it's in May. I think it's May the 15th. Today it's called Nakba Day. I'll tell you about what that is in a second. The Arabs hated that day, and they in all of the Arab armies that surround Israel attacked them. They did not agree to the United Nations partitioning of the land, so they attacked fledgling Israel. Here is the Arab and Muslim nations getting ready to attack Israel in the 1948 war. And when we think of a Bible story, you think of David and Goliath. You think of some crazy thing. He's against Goliath. He's only a kid. He's throwing a stone. He kills him. He becomes king. He takes Jerusalem, him and his mighty men. The story is just so incredible as you read through it. It's almost like a sci-fi adventure or an action movie that you just, no, there's no way that can happen. But it happens. Against all odds, this fledgling group of people brought in mainly from Europe, mainly from European Jews, defeat these multiple Arabic nations. Then, years later, 1967, They do it again. They attack this little land because they still don't want this partition. They attack the little land of Israel. Again, multiple nations, and this time they almost get wiped out. Had it not been really for the United States to help them out at that time, they would have been wiped out. And this time they take Jerusalem. Jerusalem was never given to them in the partition. They didn't even ask for it. But now they get Jerusalem. So little by little, Elohim, through war, which is how he always does it, they go into the land of Jericho by war, begins to expand the land a little bit more, in miraculous stories, fighting 4 or 5 armies, and they win. There's no way they should have won, but they won. Same thing happens in 1973, the Yom Kippur War. They try again, and again they lose. And then eventually the Intifada occurs. The PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization under Arafat, is started, and the revolt starts, and the riots start, and the bombing of buses in Israel starts, and the killing of people, and the throwing of the rocks, and all of that. The first Intifada starts. Years later, the second Intifada starts. All over again, people dying, people getting shot, Israeli, Arab. It's horrific. Israel leaves Gaza, even though they took it over in this war here. They took over the Sinai. They took over Gaza. They gave the Sinai back to Egypt, and they gave the land of Gaza back to the Arabs, back to who today are called Palestinians. Well, while all of this is going on, Iran begins to, this is in the southern part of Israel, Iran begins to finance a people called Hezbollah in the north. They then begin to have conflict with Israel over the land in northern Israel, bombing Israel, Israel bombing them, until fast forward in the story. This is the story, the conflict. All presidents want to fix the Middle East. Every time they try the Benat and Begin thing with President, what's his name? I can't think of his name. I did not touch that woman, whatever his name is. Clinton, can't think of it. Yeah, President Clinton, they couldn't get peace. Until, and they all wanted to make Jerusalem, even though Israel had Jerusalem, it's still a multicultural city. The UN wants it as a multicultural city, but Israel wanted it as their capital. But no president would confirm that until, here's the great, so I mean, the story is great already. Wars that they shouldn't have won, they won 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Horrible things going on. 2-wage war, the North and the South. Here comes President Trump, and what does he do in his first administration? He recognizes Jerusalem as the capital of Israel for the first time since like 70 AD. Jerusalem becomes the capital of Israel again. They love him. They absolutely love him there. The rest of the world hates him for it. Including his own party, including the Democrats, they all hate him for it. They wind up trying to impeach him twice for it. Eventually pulling COVID out of a hat and causing a pandemic all over the world. But before that, he not only recognizes Jerusalem. This is like a movie. He not only recognizes Jerusalem, he then signs over the Golan Heights, for which they have been fighting with Hezbollah over for a long time. And he says the Golan Heights belong to Israel. Elohim is, I'm not saying Trump's a godly man. I'm not saying Trump's but is he a vessel? Elohim is using him to expand the land little by little by little by little, always through conflict, always through war. He signs the Golan Heights over to Israel. This is a movie. This is a movie story. It doesn't end then. They try to impeach him twice. They also then try to raid his house at Mar-a-Lago. They go through warfare. He goes through courts. He gets his own mugshot. A president of the United States has his home raided by the FBI and is arrested, and first time in our history given. Why? Why do you think that would happen? Because prophecy is being fulfilled, and whether he knows it or not, he's part of it. And it's happening right in front of our eyes. And then what happens to him? He continues to run, even with all the lawfare and all the horrible things they did in the convictions. and all the sexual allegations. What happens as he's out there in Butler, Pennsylvania? They shoot at him. And in a biblical type story, as the bullet is coming to his head, he turns and it goes through his ear and pierces his ear. And of course, that's the iconic fight, fight, fight that he said when he gets up. Against all odds, this is the David and Goliath story. Against all odds, he wins. He wins. And then what happens? October 7th. October 7th, and Hamas's attack on southern Israel and the horrific, horrific things that they did. At this point, Israel's not playing anymore. They don't do the things that they used to do. No more just sending the military and coming out. And I know it's horrible. It's terrible. Things change by war. They utterly decimate Gaza. They utterly decimate Hamas. And they're still trying to decimate Hamas even today, even though there's a quasi-peace thing there. They still try to, they're decimating it. They have to. They have to. They cannot have that on their southern border. And the Bible says stuff about Gaza. We won't go through it today, but there's actually prophecies about Gaza, how they are to be destroyed. But at some point, a remnant of them are going to believe. But that's another prophecy for another day. And then what does Trump do? He begins the Board of Peace, a group of other Arab nations that he gets to try to bring peace to Gaza and have decent relations with Israel. And then what happens? Iran, who's been yelling for years, death to America, death to Israel, the great Satan and the lesser Satan. And who goes after them? Israel and the United States together are decimating that country. If they get a nuclear bomb, they're going to use it. They proved it. Look what they're doing with the Strait and everything else, bombing all their neighbors, setting the whole world on fire. Now, this is where we are. You want to know what prophecy is? You're living it. It's happening right here in front of us. And while this is going on, Israel is still now attacking Lebanon, where Hezbollah is, trying to wipe out Hezbollah. And little by little, it's expanding and it's expanding. They were dry bones, and then they were skeletons, and then they had muscles, and then they had skin and blood and eyes and hair, and then they were clothed, and then life was in them, and then they became a great army, Ezekiel says. And what are they today? A great army. Yes, obviously with the help of the United States, but they are a great, great army. But more prophecy, real quick, more prophecy. So what have the nations done historically? They hate them. They hate Israel. They hate Israel in the UN. So many here in the United States hate Israel. So many, especially the Democrats, hate Israel. So a lot of Republicans hate Israel too. I don't know what is going on with Tucker Carlson. Well, I do know what's going on with Tucker Carlson. I know what's going on with Candace Owens. It's their attachment to Orthodox Christianity that they've sort of been opened up to, which this has always despised Israel, thinks that the church is separate from Israel and that Israel has nothing to do with the story. And so that's sort of where they're coming from. But what have we lived through? What's still going on now? Riots, protest here in New York City, by any means necessary, wipe them out from the land to the sea. Who are they saying this against? Against the one that Elohim said, "Oh, nations, wake up. I'm going to bring you to the valley of Jehoshaphat, and I'm going to wet my sword, and it's going to be drenched with blood because you've abused my people and you've taken their land." I'm just telling you what the scripture says. You say we say we're believers today, like, all over the Christendom. Well, this is what the word says. This is why we often think that the Torah in the Old Testament isn't for us anymore. It has no real relevance. We just read the New Testament. But no, you got to read all that other stuff because it's all part of the entire story. So it's not just in New York. Here, of course, is New York again. This was all over the world, and it's still going on today. All over London. Here's all over our universities. This is Harvard right here. This happened at schools here in New York City. Jews were kicked out. They weren't allowed in. They had to wear some sort of a banner just to get in, like wearing a star in Nazi Germany. You had to wear a banner if you wanted to get in. They were beat up. They were taken over. People are just rioting. This is a communist, sort of Marxist slash atheist slash BLM slash Antifa slash globalist people paying for it. Just hatred of anything, both biblical, but especially Israel. And since Trump is associated, Trump's getting it too. This again, it's all over Europe. This is, of course, Germany. Same things going on in Germany. And same things, of course, even with the leadership here in New York. And not just here, this is leadership within the whole Democratic Party is like this, and many in the Republican Party as well. And now we're at the point, beloved, in our culture where now these protesters are going, because the current mayor removed the law that says you're not allowed to protest in front of a church or a synagogue. And so he removed it. And so what do now? They come and they protest violently in front of synagogues. Guarantee you, nobody's going to even try to do that in front of a mosque. But do it to a church, do it to a synagogue, no problem. Pro-Palestine mobs descend on historic synagogue. And finally, Mandami honors the Palestinian Nakba Day. Nakba Day is the day that Israel accepted the partitioning of land from the UN, where the UN said, this is your land, this is the Arabs' land. Israel said, great, we'll take it. We need a home. And the Arabs said, no, we're not going to accept it. And they attacked and they lost. That's Nakba. They call it a day of horror. It's a terrible day. And of course, it is the mayor of New York who honors that, who is also part of the nations that are opposed to him. So now, all of this to get to this, and I'm going to do this for you in a picture. Do this for you in a picture. You remember the first picture that we started off with, of course, with the Messiah, with the goats and the sheep. Here's what the real story of the goats and the sheep are about. It's not just about individuals. Matthew chapter 25:31. And when the Son of Adam comes in his glory, and all the set-apart messengers with him, he shall sit on the throne of his glory, and all the nations shall be gathered before him. And he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd separates his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then the king shall say to those on his right hand, come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. I was hungry, you fed me. I was thirsty, you gave me drink. I was naked and you clothed me. I was in prison and you visited bread. All of those things. They say, when do we do that? When do we do that to you? And the sovereign shall say, here's the answer. Now, don't forget, he's not talking just to individuals here. This isn't the white throne judgment. This is the judgment of the nations. This is what's important here. This is the judgment of the nations. This is what Moses said is going to happen when I start to bring you back to the land. I'm now going to pour judgment on the nations. Joel says the nations are going to go into the judgment of Yehoshaphat, Yah's judgment, because they took the land, because they perverted my people. A sword is going to be filled with blood for all that they have done for the cause of Zion. Here's Messiah confirming it and saying on this day, this is the fulfillment of this. It's already happening now, but everything happens in fulfillment stages. This is the ultimate fulfillment. I do not think that Messiah is going to come and sit on a throne and actually separate. This is a parable. He's going to do this through war. He's going to do this through death. He's going to do this through the most horrific time this planet has ever seen. That's how this change is going to come about. But he's describing it to us here in this parabolic form of sheep and goats. And he says, so the nations are gathered there. And he says, come, blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you. You're going to enter into these nations that treated his, as much as you did it to me, you did it to one of my brethren. Now, here's the thing. People say, well, the brethren, he's got to be talking about Christians. No, he's talking about Israel. He's talking about Ephraim. He's talking about Judah. And he's talking about the strangers and foreigners, which would be us, that are attached to that and how they have been treated throughout all of the nations throughout the time of their beginning of their exile and scattering to the end. Just like Moses said, now I'm going to put on all of them what they did to you. And he's going to compress it all down into a very, very short time. Come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you. From those nations are going to make it into the millennial kingdom. They'll survive into the kingdom. But then he turns to those on the left. He says, and the sovereign shall answer and say to them, Truly I say to you, and this is how he went to the people on the left. Truly I say to you, insofar as you did to one of the least of these, my brothers, to the people on the right, I'm sorry, you did it to me. The brothers he's talking about are the brothers in the house of Israel. All 12 tribes, native born and sojourners, now sojourners no more. We are all part of the house, the kingdom, the nation of Israel. And we serve the God of Israel, the Elohim of Israel. It's how you treated my brothers. You did it to them, you did it to me. Even though the penalty was supposed to be there, the penalty was right and good, you didn't like the way that they were treated. Then to the goats who do the opposite, who treated them terribly, then he shall answer and say, truly I say to you, insofar as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. And these shall go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into everlasting life. So think about every nation on the planet that is, river to the sea, anti-Israel, anti-God, anti-Bible, anti-father, anti-mother, anti-believer, anti-morals, anti-life, pro-death, pro-abortion, all of these crazy things, how Yah's people are being treated, both in the nations, as the Jews have been, as the Northern House has been, as believers in Messiah. We are children of Jerusalem. We are those who keep the commandments and have the testimony of Messiah. We are the seed, the children of Jerusalem. That's who we are. We're still part of the family and how we've been treated. And Elohim is going to divide those nations. And some of them are going to make it into the millennial kingdom, and others are not. And all the leaders and everybody else that's there and that's part of this and all the stuff they did. And so you can see in the picture there, it's not sheep and goats. It's nations represented by their flags. It represents the nation. And as your nation goes, so do you as an individual. That is a little bit different than we normally sort of get this this story told to us. But it is in line with everything else. It's in line with Moses. It's in line with Jeremiah. It's in line with Ezekiel. It's in line with Zechariah. Everything must connect. It's not a different story for us, and Elohim forgets about them. It's one big, wonderful story to which, beloved, you and I are living in the day when the people have come back to the land in our lifetime, just before, in my lifetime, Jerusalem was captured in 67. That's my year of my birth. It's been happened in my lifetime, and it's expanded. And it makes me wonder how much longer till Elohim pours his spirit out on them and they open their eyes. And some really, really bad things prophetically. I know it's bad now. We haven't seen anything yet. It's going to get worse, beloved, before it gets better. But it does get better. And do not fear, for our Elohim is the Elohim of the nation of Israel, of which you are a citizen. Well, that's it for tonight, guys. I hope that you enjoyed that. I hope you understood that it made sense to you. I want you to be a little excited to see kind of what's going on and realize this is all happening right in front of us. This whole huge story of Israel and Trump and the administration. It's all interconnected. They love him there because they're growing and they know it. And here's the thing. The people in Israel, the rabbis, the scholars, they know this. They know these prophecies. They know this. Why do you think they're so emboldened to do what they're doing? Because they believe that Elohim is actually doing this. They just don't understand that at some point they're going to look up and they're going to weep and mourn like for a son that they have lost when they realize that they have rejected the one who was pierced for them. But, and after terrible, terrible tragedy, those that remain, they're going to come to full faith. And the house, the nation of Israel, the fulfillment of the promise given to Abraham will happen, and all the nations will be blessed. That's the story for tonight. Guys, thank you so much for watching us. I appreciate that. Don't forget, nothing on Friday. We'll see you on Sunday, 10:30 a.m. Don't forget. In the meantime, have an awesome night out there. And of course, shalom, everybody. Peace. Oh, pray, please, for Jim and also for Ida. Love you guys. Peace.